What's up, everyone? Welcome to our Thursday night pregame show for Week 14. I'm Tara Roberts, and I'm here with Adam Ronis. I am happy to be back with Adam. We are taking your questions live in the Fantasy Alarm Discord, and we are previewing tonight's game. Should be a good game, hopefully. Decent amount of offense between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Minnesota Vikings. We've got a game this week between two teams with a lot of fantasy assets and some playoff aspirations as well, so they should be very competitive. Adam, first of all, how are you doing?
I'm doing well considering this looks like it's shaping up to be a really hectic week. Obviously, a critical Week 14, the last week of the regular season in most leagues. Some leagues, the playoffs have started this week, but just so many injuries that we're still unsure of. And what we do know, as we just found out, is that as expected, as reported today, Dalvin Cook is officially active for Minnesota.
Very excited for that. I've seen a lot of questions coming in. I'm certain that we will have plenty of questions around that as we go through the show. And second question, I was not here for your Cowboys victory last week, but how did that Thursday night win feel?
Actually, I was really disappointed. I had to go on the radio after that game on SiriusXM Fantasy, and I was kind of disgusted with the way the offense played. I'll take the W, obviously. They needed it, but I just didn't think the offense played well. The defense, obviously, forcing the 4 turnovers, intercepting Taysom Hill. And that's the one difference with this Cowboys team. I know everyone looks at them and goes, oh, they're going to disappoint. They do this every year. They have not had a defense like this in a long time, especially now they could get Randy Gregory back this week. Parsons has been a force as a rookie. DeMarcus Lawrence just came back last week and only played half the snaps. And Diggs has obviously been a big playmaker. So this is a team that has never forced many turnovers on the defensive side over the years past, and now they are. So that has me encouraged, but they still have issues on offense. The offensive run blocking has not been great. We heard today Tony Pollard dealing with a plantar fasciitis tear, although I've seen some doctors say it's better to have the tear, but that doesn't mean he can play this week, so that's something to keep an eye on. Obviously, Ezekiel Elliott's not 100%. He's trying to gut his way through it. So they still have some issues on offense, but, it's all on them now. They play Washington twice, Philly, the Giants, and Arizona. So they need to handle their business. Although I did see if Washington wins out, they win the division. So if that happens, I'm going to be very unhappy. It'll be a terrible holiday season for me. So
yes, you mentioned that defense leading the league in interceptions with 19, tied with New England. Yeah, kind of crazy. I mean, you think offense, you think Dak, you think Ezekiel Elliott, CeeDee Lamb, Mariah Cooper, but that defense has really been carrying through, especially from a fantasy perspective. They do give up a lot of yardage, but they're very usable just because of the sheer mass amount of turnovers.
Yeah, that's what you need in fantasy. When you're looking at a fantasy defense, you're looking at a team. I mean, really, you're looking for game script. So you're looking for a team, all right, they're going to play from ahead, and then in the second half, they can tee off. They can go be aggressive after the quarterback, get some sacks, have the other team put the ball in the air, which leads to interceptions and mistakes. That's kind of what you're looking for. And that, like you said, they do give up a lot of yards. But a lot of times this year, not every game, especially lately the last few weeks, they've been struggling. But oftentimes they're favored. The game script is in their favor, and they could just tee off in that second half and go after the quarterback. So that's kind of what happened last week, right? They played with the lead. Taysom Hill, obviously an inexperienced quarterback, although he's great. He's good for fantasy. That's the thing. Like, he had 4 interceptions last week, and he still had over 24 Yahoo fantasy points because 111 rushing yards. So he's in a good spot this week against the Jets, too, who are 30th in run defense DVOA and 32nd in DVOA against the pass.
Yeah, so you feel confident with him as a QB1 this week. I got a ton of start-sit questions coming in today comparing Taysom to Cam Newton, to Lamar Jackson. I mean, where do you have him ranked?
I think I have him ranked, I think it was 9th or 10th. Here's the thing, and I've had this discussion this week, like the quarterback position right now, there's not a lot of guys you feel confident in. Like Patrick Mahomes has been brutal. He has 1 passing touchdown or fewer in 5 of his last 6 games, and 3 of them he has none. Now, the one game that he did go off against the Raiders, who he plays this week, 5 touchdowns. So if you have him, you're going to play him. I can't imagine many teams are having a great year with Mahomes, but it's certainly possible. Lamar Jackson is struggling. And I've seen people asking, why is Lamar Jackson ranked high every week? Because he runs. Yeah. So he's going to give you 50, 60, 70 rushing yards. Now, here's the other. I didn't realize this until like this week. Lamar Jackson hasn't had a rushing touchdown since week 2. He had 2 in week 2. he had 2 rushing touchdowns in week 2. He hasn't had a rushing touchdown since. So, he could always find the end zone. The interceptions have been a problem. But, like, how low can you put Lamar Jackson? Because, the difference is look at Lamar Jackson and look at Joe Burrow, right? Joe Burrow's had 3 bad games in a row. But why is Lamar Jackson higher? Because he gives you the 50, 60, 70 rushing yards that Burrow doesn't. Even though Burrow, for some reason, Burrow has 2 rushes over the last 2 weeks. Both went for rushing touchdowns. Which you can't count on.
Much to the chagrin of
the quarterback
Mixon
position is tough right now because a lot of those guys at the top, we don't feel good about. Even Josh Allen's had some tough weeks. I do expect him to be fine this week. Kyler Murray came back and, had the 2 rushing touchdowns, but there's a lot of quarterback. Even Dak Prescott. Dak didn't have a good game last week. So, I think you just are going to stick with those guys. I've already got some questions, to play guys over Lamar Jackson. But if I have Lamar Jackson, I find it difficult to bench him.
Yeah, because it's realistically, exactly what you can get to have him be the overall QB1 for the week. It's a lot harder for those guys like Burrow that you mentioned to get there because they have to do so much from a pass perspective. So, yeah, it's a cheat code. You got to go with it.
I mean, look, Lamar, if he gives you 240 passing and 2 passing touchdowns, and his rushing, that's a big week. Now, I understand he hasn't done it lately, and he just really struggled against the Browns, who he faces this week, 2 weeks ago in primetime. I think that was the game he had 4 picks, right? Against the Browns, I think, in primetime? I think so, yeah. So, but they have talked about going no huddle more often because they're better in no huddle. I don't know why they just don't do it.
Yeah. But, even without the touchdowns, even the yardage, because if you look at Taysom last week, it was all yards. He didn't have touchdowns on the ground. It was just 2 through the air. So as long as you're getting there with the yards, I mean, it's hard. It's so hard to pivot away from that.
Yeah, for sure. That's why we like these running quarterbacks. Again, Taysom Hill showed it last week. I mean, he did have that second touchdown was really late to Deontay Harris. I think it was like 60-plus yards. So, but it counted. And, again, a good matchup here against the Jets. Alvin Kamara will be back. That certainly will help him as well. So I'm starting him in a league over Burrow this week.
Yeah. And on the subject of quarterbacks, we've got quite a few out this week. Carson Wentz is somebody that we've been relying on as kind of a back-end QB1, high-end QB2. You got Jalen Hurts, obviously, someone that people are rolling out as a starter. And Tua, who has been a very sneaky streaming option, who's always there for you. So, we've got these guys that are out this week. Who do you like from a streaming perspective? Who are your top 3 streamers?
Yeah, I think Taysom Hill is one, assuming he was out there. I was able to pick him up in a 14-team league this week. Then I guess Taylor Heineke against Dallas. I hope I'm wrong on that. Nah, he could have a big day. I'm actually starting him in a RT Sports Championship League. So in that format, the playoffs start this week. And I had the aforementioned 2 quarterbacks that you have, Wentz and Hurts. So I had to go to the waiver wire. And it's Heineke that I'm going with this week. Fields is interesting, too. Again, a running quarterback, 12.5-point underdog. I don't know if I feel great about it. I was having this discussion with someone that I share a team with. We got Heineke as our top bid, but Fields is kind of right there, too. Again, we saw him starting to run before the bye. But Green Bay's defense is really good. Jair Alexander could be back. Yeah. They are 12.5-point dogs. And Allen Robinson said he expects to play. I don't know if that does anything because he hasn't been great this year. But I think Fields could be interesting as well. I don't like Derek Carr. That Raiders offense has been terrible, and the Chiefs defense is really good. Tannehill,
interesting.
Yeah, I don't trust them. Jacksonville has not been they're better against the run. I just can't trust Tannehill. Bridgewater's in a good spot, but do you trust
him? Good matchup. Yeah.
I just don't.
I don't either.
Detroit's really susceptible against the run, and we know that's what Denver likes to do. So I think you'll see a lot of Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, who is expected to play, which is a real crusher for those that have Javonte Williams and enjoyed last week's outburst.
Mm-hmm. And then maybe what about? I've seen people that they're not scared to go back to Cam. Are you scared to go back to Cam? Doing it?
I actually have them ranked above those guys. So it would be Taysom, Cam, Heineke. So in a super flex league, I have Tua on bye and Russell Wilson. My other quarterback was Bridgewater. I dropped Bridgewater for Cam.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because I completely agree with you. I mean, Detroit, why sit there and make Teddy throw on them? You can just run the ball with both Javonte and Melvin Gordon. So it makes sense. It makes me kind of a little bit worried about those these Denver receivers. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that game goes.
Yeah, I think the one receiver that I would play is Judy. He's got a good matchup. They've been trying to get him the ball, but like you are correct. Even though the matchup is great, it's like I don't see how you could trust Cortland Sutton or Patrick right now. Even Noah Fant as well.
Yeah.
Like it's just, Fant has had good matchups and not produce. So I mean, if there's any week Bridgewater could have a good week, it's this. But like if you're streaming, like you cannot have a lot of faith in him. You're crossing your fingers and hoping. I mean, you're really hoping for 250 and 2 touchdowns, and they haven't shown any ability to do that recently.
Yeah, completely agree. All right, guys. Just as a reminder, we are previewing tonight's game. We touched on Dalvin Cook a little bit. I'm sure we'll dive into that in depth later. But we're previewing tonight's game. We're also running through hot topics through the league. And we are answering your questions live from the Fantasy Alarm Discord in the live stream Q&A. But before we kick off the show, Fantasy Alarm has teamed up with Yahoo Daily Fantasy this season to offer a whole new DFS experience. For a limited amount of time, get a free $25 contest entry fee after your first deposit with the promo code ALARM. And if that's not enough, how about we throw in our NFL DFS playbook for free? Yes, that's right. You will get our award-winning NFL Playbook Pro package for free when you sign up and deposit with Yahoo Daily Fantasy. So all you got to do is just go to fantasyalarm.com/Yahoo, use the promo code ALARM when you sign up and make a deposit, and then you just go to dfsalarm.com, wait for the pop-up, and then you'll have it. You will have the NFL DFS Pro Playbook Pro for free, all yours. So hot topics around the league. Let's go ahead and dive into it, and then we can cover the game for tonight. I thought we would kick off with a hot topic being a recap of that Monday Night Football game between the Patriots and the Buffalo Bills. I found that one, a lot of us were previewing that well before the weather came in. And once we figured it out, everyone kind of knew what direction it was heading. But I don't know if we expected it to be that drastic in terms of how the Patriots were going to attack the Buffalo defense. But it worked. I guess, the fantastic mind of Bill Belichick. But the Patriots are leading the AFC. We saw that, we've got two very talented running backs in Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson. Damian Harris had 10 carries, 111 yards, 1 touchdown. Stevenson had 24 carries, 78 yards. Buffalo just really wasn't able to consistently stop the run. So we've looked at this Buffalo defense as something that is incredibly strong. You don't want to start your players against them unless it's, the big guys out there that you're rolling out every week. So are you looking at this Buffalo defense any differently? Are teams maybe rethinking the way that they're going to be attacking them moving forward?
I don't think so. I think it was just one of those aberrations, the weather. I think Buffalo obviously just did a terrible job adjusting to it. It was definitely perplexing. I've had questions about Buffalo this year because they really haven't played anyone good. The one team they did is Kansas City, but that was back in like week 4, week 5 when Kansas City wasn't playing well. I do expect, though, a big performance from Buffalo this week against Tampa Bay. I mean, you could see they were pretty pissed off after that. And this is a huge game for them. I mean, they can slide out of playoff contention. I actually think they could still win the division. If you look at the odds, they're heavily favored in New England. The key is going to be for Buffalo is they need to beat New England when they play again because New England, after their bye, is at Indianapolis. I think they lose that game. It's a big game for Indy, and I think Indy is a really good team. Then they have to play Buffalo again. So if New England goes 2-2, and even if Buffalo loses to Tampa this week, they have easy games. I think it was Atlanta, Carolina, Jacksonville. So Buffalo could go 4-1. So if Buffalo goes 4-1 and New England goes 2-2, they both finish with 11 wins, and they would both be in the head-to-head 1-1. And the tiebreaker is division record, and Buffalo would have it. So if you're betting, and I'm not saying I'm doing this, but I'm just saying with all the helium and praise New England's getting right now, people are just kind of automatically dusting off Buffalo. And I think it's like better than plus 200. So, again, even if Buffalo loses this week, the key is Buffalo has got to beat New England when they face off in New England. That is the key. They have to do it. If they don't, then forget it. But, yeah, I mean, Buffalo, from a fantasy perspective, we know who we're starting. I mean, you got to stay away from the running backs, especially this week. They're not going to run on Tampa. They're not going to run on Tampa, so they're going to be pass heavy this week. But yeah, they've been disappointing this year. I think there were a lot of people who expected them to run away with the AFC East. Clearly, that hasn't been the case, as New England has just been phenomenal this year. And Bill Belichick showed why he's the greatest coach the other night.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned those running backs. I mean, I guess we know for sure they're not useful for the remainder of the season. We could touch on maybe from a dynasty perspective. Are these any guys that how are you seeing this moving forward? Unfortunately, both Zach Moss and Devin Singletary are very young. Then we've got Matt Breida randomly thrown into the mix. I mean, is there any path forward here with either of these guys becoming relevant? We've got the same offense. They're not really going to pivot. We've got Josh Allen, who is very strong in the run game and, takes up a lot of those rushing touchdown opportunities down in the red zone. So are we able to do anything with this backfield moving forward at any point?
I don't see it, especially with the way they're constructed and how they kind of split it up. I mean, I think Zach Moss was active last week because of the weather conditions. This week, he might not be active. I think this might be more a Matt Breida game because they're going to be pass heavy. I still wouldn't feel good starting them. I mean, I just don't think you could start any of them at this point. It should be a pass heavy game plan for them against Tampa. We've seen, Tampa's just really good against the run. I mean, there's been some backs that have had success, but Buffalo is not equipped to run on them. So I think you just see them pass heavy. Yeah, and it's just, you can't really be interested in those running backs the way this team runs their offense right now.
Yeah. And you took it to betting. I mean, we can go that direction too. We've got the Patriots. We've got Buffalo. Does the Super Bowl from the AFC perspective go through these two teams? Or is there a viable path for anyone else other than them?
I mean, the AFC is so wide open. I mean, I just don't think many teams are very good at this point. I mean, look, New England, they are well coached. They don't turn the ball over. They don't beat themselves, and they force turnovers. You mentioned the interceptions tied with Dallas. And that might actually be enough in the AFC this year. I'm not ready to say yes. They still have played one of the easiest schedules. But they've taken advantage of it. And again, outcoached teams. The Ravens, to me, have issues. We talked about Lamar Jackson's poor play. Their defense, Marlon Humphrey out for the year. They've won a lot of close games. A lot of things have broke right for them. I actually think their Colts are very interesting. Now, the key is, can they get in? Because they have no margin for error. But I think they're built for the playoffs. Running the football, physical team. They just got off to a bad start. So I would love to see the Colts get in the postseason because I think they're dangerous. I mean, Kansas City, their defense has been great. I still don't think this offense is fixed. I mean, they've had 22 points or fewer in 5 of their last 6 games. And last week they got over 20 because of a defensive touchdown. Even against Dallas, they started well, and Dallas really shut them down the rest of the game. So they have not solved their issues. So the Chargers always I fall for them, and then they always disappoint. So I think it's kind of wide open, which leaves you to believe that it's New England's there for the taking, and it's 6-0 on the road. I don't know if I'm ready to put money down on them because the odds have gone in their favor. I guess it was weeks ago was the time to bet on them if you believed in them. But I mean, Tennessee's a fraud at 8-4 with no Derrick Henry. I mean, if Henry came back and AJ Brown came back, yeah, it's a little bit different because I think they are a well-coached teams. But the AFC, there's just it's kind of like process of elimination. Well, everyone sucks. I don't believe anyone. All right, give me New England and Belichick, right? I mean, that's basically the way I look at it right now.
It's funny because on the opposite end with the NFC, you've got multiple teams that are just high-level competitors that could go, when you look at it and you say, okay, it makes sense that New England would be the favorite. It's wide open, but they seem to be very solidified. And you head over to the NFC and you've got a lot of teams that seem to be on the exact same level in terms of their odds, their likelihood of getting in there, and their talent. So, who are you leaning towards in the NFC?
Dallas Cowboys. No, I'm just kidding. I think they got a shot, but they still have a lot to prove. Probably leaning towards Tampa right now. Again, they have their flaws as well, especially on defense. We've seen Brady struggle on the road, but it's just his experience, the weapons he has. The defense is getting a little bit healthier. Look, everyone talks about Green Bay, and I've kind of been against Green Bay the last couple of years, and then they do it in the regular season, and the playoffs come, they don't come up with the big performance. And my thing with Green Bay is their defense has improved. It's better than recent versions. But the problem is they just never added to the wide receiver core because maybe Devontae Adams doesn't get shut down against a good team. But what happens when they limit him? Who's going to step up? And we haven't seen it. I mean, is it maybe MVS finally? Maybe. But it's hard for me to buy into them. Arizona, I haven't been completely sold on, but I got to give them credit. All they do is win. And they have they have one blowout loss. I think it was Carolina, where Kyler Murray didn't play. Their other loss was 3 points to Green Bay, where if A.J. Green turns around, maybe they win that game. Yeah. And they went 2-1 without Kyler Murray. So I'm still not completely sold on them, but I got to give them credit. They're 7-0 on the road. They've won every road game by double digits. So they're good. But yeah, I think the NFC is really interesting. Dallas, if things break right, they have a lot of talent. Mike McCarthy just is my biggest concern with them. But yeah, the NFC is very interesting for sure. I know people are talking about the Rams. I don't buy the Rams. They have beaten no one good. In fact, let me see if I can get it right. Going into last week, the record of the opponents they beat was 27-50-1. Now they beat Jacksonville last week, so now it's what, 29-60-1? They have beaten no one good. They faced Arizona once this year and got blasted. People just keep talking them up. They've done nothing. They're a bully team. They beat the bad teams whenever they face. They got embarrassed on Sunday night by Tennessee. They got embarrassed on Monday night by San Francisco, which is why that line, to me, makes no sense this week. Arizona favored by 2. I don't get it. That line should be higher. So I'm probably taking them. I think it's a trap.
Yeah, I agree. It's very impressive how you sit there. And last season, it's interesting. They had playoff aspirations. And when Kyler Murray got hurt and tried to play through it, that's when everything fell apart. So now you've got a team that is so well put together by Cliff Kingsbury and them that they're to the point now where they can be out their top 2 offensive players and just keep rolling on through. So yeah, it's very interesting. I agree with you. That one there is a nice dark horse in terms of the way they've been organized.
We know what the NFL wants, right? Yeah. It's good Tampa Bay New right? Come on.
Of course.
Like, it's kind of inevitable at this point. I was joking a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, man, the NFL scripted. This is exactly what we're going to get, Tampa, New England. But I mean, as weeks go by, it kind of feels more realistic. But I mean, it's going to be tough for Tampa though, because, can Green Bay beat them? Sure. I mean, Green Bay last year, Green Bay could have won that game. Brady was not good in that game. He threw, was it 3 picks in that game? I think. Yeah. Rodgers didn't play well either, but they could have won that game. And home field's kind of going to be key for them. Again, Tampa did win in Green Bay last year. People forget that. And Arizona right now has the leg up. That's kind of a big game for them, money, because if Arizona loses on Monday and we expect Green Bay to win against Chicago Sunday night, all of a sudden Green Bay's sitting there pretty with the 1 seed.
Very true. Very true. It's very interesting. I can't wait to see how this shapes out. And you mentioned Green Bay and Chicago. We've got Justin Fields back in action. If it's interesting because I can see a whole bunch of different ways where this goes. I think you talked about him early when we were talking about streamers. He's got that rushing upside, but we've mentioned that Green Bay's secondary is vastly improved. So we've got Justin Fields back. We have David Montgomery, where Green Bay is vulnerable on the ground. They could be utilizing David Montgomery, who had a very good week last week, kind of gave that final, David Montgomery pulling through game that we've been waiting to see, from last year as well. So it'll be interesting to see how Justin Fields gets back into action and how that affects the pass catchers. How are you feeling about? I'm getting a lot of questions about Darnell Mooney. Not a lot about Allen Robinson. I think we've all kind of swayed away from, even if he does play, are we starting him? Probably not. But Mooney is very interesting because it's a tough matchup, and you got Justin Fields coming back after time off. But the connection with them was so good before. Are we seeing this continue, or are you backing away this week?
No, I'm probably going to stick with him. Maybe he's a little bit lower than recent weeks. I have him in my home league. And we start 3 receivers and 2 flex spots, and I have Mike Williams, so I don't know if he's going to play. So right now I have Mooney penciled in. If Williams plays, I'll probably play him over Mooney. I have another playoff matchup, but I'm probably not playing Mooney. But, I have like T. Higgins, Lockett, Lamb. So, I have some good players. But to me, he's right around the 20-25 range. You expect the Bears to play from behind, right? I mean, the 12.5-point dogs on the road, so should be a lot of pass plays. So I'm going to continue to play Mooney for sure. Allen Robinson back maybe helps them a little bit. I mean, I wonder if Jair Alexander plays, what they'll do. I would be more worried about Mooney and his speed, but I think Mooney is still a solid wide receiver too.
Makes sense. And you mentioned the Chargers and Mike Williams as well. Other hot topic from around the league, they've got COVID problems, unfortunately. Keenan Allen tested positive. I think we still technically can wait. It's not 100% that he'll be out, but we'll have to see over these next couple of days. We got Mike Williams as well, who was a close contact. And I did see that he got a negative test, but we still don't know for sure. We still have to have a waiting period for him. So we've got things up in the air with this scenario for the Chargers. And they're facing the Giants, who, oddly enough, they've been all right against the pass. So in this situation, let's look at this in multiple scenarios. So let's say that both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, although I'm kind of feeling positive that Mike Williams is going to be able to play, but let's just say neither of them do. What are you doing with Justin Herbert?
I think you have to downgrade him a little bit. I mean, I think what happens is you'll see a lot of Eckler, a lot of passes to Eckler and passes to the tight ends. But then again, I don't know how far I can downgrade him. I think I have him 8th at quarterback. I mean, it's just, and he can still throw to Eckler, the tight ends, Guyton, Palmer. Like you said, it does. I mean, who knows with this? Everything is unpredictable. I mean, it'd be shocking to me if Keenan Allen plays, because I was talking about this, and maybe someone I'm missing. I don't remember any player testing positive on Monday or Tuesday playing that week. It has not happened one time this year. Am I wrong on that? Do you remember?
I don't think so.
Yeah, they all miss a game. Nick Chubb, like everyone. So I wouldn't expect him to play. Williams has a better shot, as you alluded to. We did hear he has a negative test. He was a close contact. It wasn't reported until yesterday, but apparently this was Monday. So he could be activated on Saturday and be good to go. And let's hope so, because Mike Williams would be in a spot where, if you look, when he has 7-8 targets, he goes off. And there's no reason why he shouldn't get that many targets. Now, not all of Keenan Allen's targets go to him, but still, that would be a good spot for Mike Williams, and you play him. But yeah, I mean, Jared Cook obviously would see an uptick. And Eckler obviously would be in a really good spot as well. Eckler's already got 15 total touchdowns this year. Giants struggle against the run, allowing over 122 rushing yards per game, even though Eckler's not a big guy on the ground, but the Giants also allow a lot of passes to the running back. So, I think those guys would benefit. So, I mean, Herbert, maybe you ding him a little bit, but probably not enough to bench him in season-long weeks.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And then moving on, another weird hot topic, Urban Meyer and the punishment of James Robinson in the game last week. That was a weird scenario, especially when you consider it's not like a Rojo situation where you've got a history of fumbling and some frustrations we've got James Robinson, who's been a pretty reliable person. So we didn't really get any kind of straight answer out of Urban Meyer, which is not unusual. But what a weird scenario. I got a lot of questions around James Robinson in terms of start, which you wouldn't normally think. That's a solid start. But are you fearing the Urban Meyer here in terms of what he could or couldn't do to James Robinson?
Yeah, I mean, the whole situation with him has been a disaster this year. I mean, I think Robinson's like a RB2 this week. Probably you would see him get. We've seen this before. Players talk up, and they usually get the volume the next week. So he's like right around the RB 21, 22 probably for this week. So, but then again, be careful with the RB rankings right now, because I have guys in there like Elijah Mitchell. Don't know if he's going to play. Darrell Henry. It's just a nightmare right now. So just be fluid and flexible. Again, just worry about setting your lineup based on players tonight.
Yeah.
I'll be updating the rankings tomorrow after injury news comes out Saturday. So just got to be patient. You need the most information at hand. But, I mean, Robinson's a fine play. I mean, you're lowering expectations. But, Tennessee is coming off the bye. They really need this W here. I expect them to play better. They're well coached, but Robinson's like right around RB2. He had a rest day today. He has been a little banged up, but he did get through last week's game, so he's an RB2.
Yeah. And then speaking of injuries, you touched on a few right there. We've got some weird situations with injuries and not knowing exactly where we can pivot to until Sunday with a lot of these guys. So I'll run through some notable injuries and we can talk them out. I might have missed some stuff because, as you mentioned, there's stuff that's flying in. Just a second ago, I was looking and I see that now, after we've been thinking Jermichael Hasty in the event that Elijah Mitchell is out, apparently Jeff Wilson might be okay to go and might be the lead back in this situation. So, yeah, there's so many different directions that everything can go. But we've got Elijah Mitchell that we mentioned. We've got Elijah Moore as well. Debo Samuel again, who was out last week, maybe out again this week. We've got Darren Waller, who I think was at least changed to day-to-day, but not practicing as of yesterday that I saw. Giants wide receivers, I feel like at this point we know what to expect with them, but possibly Sterling Shepard. Yeah, exactly. The only possibility of someone playing Sterling Shepard, but I mean, again, we've seen limited and not actually going through. Then we've got, unfortunately, COVID down there in New England as well, touching on a few places, but New Orleans, not New England. Down in New Orleans, we've got Mark Ingram and now Ty Montgomery as well. So we've got Alvin Kamara as the lone returning back, thank goodness. We can touch on that as well. But Mixon, Joe Burrow, Chase Edmonds designated off IR. There's just so many different directions that we're heading. Which of these things are really just standing out to you?
All of them. I mean, really, It's just, San Francisco is a big deal. I thought it would be more Jermichael Hasty. I mean, Wilson does not look good. I mean, that knee seems to be an issue. So if it's Wilson and Hasty, I might not want to start either of them. I understand people are desperate, 14-team leagues, a lot of injuries, but I don't really feel good about any of those guys at this point, pending further. Darrell Henderson, Sony Michel is tough. That game's Monday night. Yeah. I really hope that we get word about that on Saturday or Sunday morning, because that's going to be a headache. Now, if you have both, it's easy. Henderson's active and he's not limited, you play him. If he's not, you play Michel. But if you don't have both, because I have a league where I have Henderson and no Sony Michel. So I'm going to have to make a decision Sunday morning. And it's not going to be fun if we don't have the proper information. So, Elijah Moore is a big one because we finally have seen him emerge. Corey Davis is out for the year. Feeling really good about him. And he has not practiced now 2 days in a row with the quad. So that's something that's definitely concerning. So we'll have to wait for the Friday practice reports. But if he doesn't practice Friday, that's a problem. Tevin Coleman's in concussion protocol. So Ty Johnson could get a boost there, even though they've been reluctant to go to him. But you got to figure they're dogs at home against the Saints. So maybe Johnson could finally be involved in the passing game. So, there's just so many question marks this week. J.D. McKissick, is he going to play? Yeah, he was at practice today, but he hasn't cleared concussion protocol yet. The Chargers we touched upon with the wide receivers. Darren Waller did not practice today, so it's not looking good for him. I have a league where I have Waller and Conklin. I can't mess around. I'm playing Conklin tonight. Go ahead. Yeah. Can't wait for Waller. Cannot wait for him, because you don't want to risk him not playing, and then you're stuck picking up some garbage off the waiver wire, because that league's pretty deep and there's not much available. So, it's a rough week. It's week 14, and we have a lot of question marks, a lot of things that we still have to wait on. So, just be patient. We're going to be here to help you. And, we're in the Discord. The rankings will be updated. So just relax. Take it easy.
And always, we've still got 30 minutes to go on the show. But there's also the Fantasy Alarm show on Sunday morning as well. So you can head back and check that out as well for the latest information before the game starts. As a reminder, guys, I see questions going on in Discord, and we will be getting to them in just a second. Thank you very much for submitting them in there. And before we do that, we'll jump into the pregame of this Thursday night game, which I think is going to be very interesting, very promising. We touched on Dalvin Cook earlier and the fact that he's confirmed already to be playing tonight. He's good to go. At least we didn't have to wait for a game time decision, and we're hearing that he's going to be at full capacity. So a lot of positive things. Although maybe from like a DFS perspective, some of us were maybe going to possibly roll him out there, hoping that others were not going to, and maybe get a little advantage there. But I think maybe we were all keyed in now that Dalvin's good to go. But the big news out of there, beside that, obviously, Adam Thielen. And a lot of people, when you think of Thielen, for some reason, people don't realize just how crucial he is to that team and how much he is a leader within fantasy points. Through week 12 in PPR, he was the wide receiver 7 in total fantasy points, averaging 17.4 per game. That's a ton of production. I know that we love Justin Jefferson to the moon, but I can't imagine that all of that production can just go over to Justin Jefferson. So we've got a couple of directions. We've you hit on Tyler Conklin as well, who's obviously going to be an interesting and good pivot at the tight end position this week because we've seen him very involved throughout the entire year. And then I'm seeing stocks up for KJ Osborne as well, who is somebody who, he hasn't, unfortunately, he hasn't been highly productive in many games because with the level of talent that they have on that team, I mean, there's just too many mouths to feed. There's no opportunity for him. But when he's gotten the opportunity, he's pulled through. So, I guess we can touch on those guys in terms of what we're doing with the replacement of Adam Thielen. How are you feeling about, you mentioned and touched on Conklin. How are you feeling about KJ Osborne as well?
Yeah, I mean, solid wide receiver 3. We've seen this year, early in the year, he was involved. He was actually a hot pickup like the first few weeks of the season. I think people are like, oh, wow, is there going to be value for 3 wide receivers in this offense? And obviously it quickly fizzled out. But he had 7 for 76 on 9 targets week 1, 5 for 91, 6 targets week 2, 7 targets a week 4, and then kind of started to go away and people started dropping them. And then we saw last week when Thielen went out early, 7 targets, 4 for 47 and a touchdown. So, he's probably going to get his 6, 7 targets. Jefferson obviously is going to get a lot. Conklin is kind of, he's going to block a little bit, especially if they have the lead too. That could hurt him a little bit. Sure, Cook is going to get fed the football, but I mean, Conklin's a borderline tight end 1 for me this week. He's not a big play threat. He's not going to get a lot of yards. So you hope that he gets 4 or 5 receptions and maybe finds the end zone. But yeah, they're going to probably focus on Jefferson quite a bit. It's probably not going to matter. He's still putting up points. He's been that good. So Osborne does have an opportunity here because one thing about Minnesota is they don't really spread the ball around. That's the one thing we love about them for fantasy. It's Cook, Thielen, Jefferson, and again, occasionally Mixon Conklin. You take Thielen out of the mix, so now it's Osborne and a little Conklin as well. So, they're all solid for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, we're starting Justin Jefferson. That's not a question. Kirk Cousins. How are we feeling about Kirk Cousins? Where do you have him ranked this week?
I think he's like 12 or 13, so right there. I mean, it's always tough because we know sometimes in prime time he doesn't get it done, but he's been pretty consistent this year and put up solid numbers. So again, if you need him, you're streaming, sure. I doubt anyone is starting Cousins every week, but yeah, you can use him again. Borderline QB1 for me this week.
And then heading over to Pittsburgh, it's been a little bit of a mixed bag with them in terms of the consistency with that team. Especially with defense, which I think is why we're so positive about literally every single playmaker on the Vikings team. But in terms of the starts for Pittsburgh, obviously we've got Najee, we've got Deontay. We don't question that. But, Big Ben. Minnesota's defense has been vulnerable against the pass. Is he someone is there an instance where you could be streaming him against this Minnesota defense?
I wouldn't. He's just been too bad. I mean, obviously in a showdown slate, it's completely different. He's definitely in play, but in a season-long league, I just can't do it. Minnesota is getting some players back on the defensive side as well, but we just haven't seen Ben put up big games this year. He's got 1 game of more than 2 touchdowns this year. That came against the Chargers, that Sunday night game, that wild game where all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, they just went crazy. But Ben has 1 300-yard game this year. That was back in week 3 against Cincinnati. It's just it doesn't have the ability to go deep. It's just a lot of dinking and dunking. So, I mean, what's the ceiling for him? 250 and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So it doesn't run. So definitely not in season long. I'm not streaming him.
Do we see production there for Claypool? He's been the consistency has been a little up and down with him.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, he's been bothered by a little bit of a toe issue, so I think that has an effect. But he's a big play guy. He can get you, a 40-yard catch, a couple more catches, and you're looking at a pretty good day. And then you hope that he finds the end zone. But Vikings have struggled against the team's number 2 wide receiver this year, so he should get 6, 7 targets. You're hoping for a big play from him. Ben does take shots to him occasionally deep down the sideline. So, yeah, I think Claypool's, like a wide receiver 3.
Yes. And then, guys, I think we'll go ahead and jump into Discord and start answering some questions in there. Again, I'm taking them from the live stream Q&A. If I have time, I'll look under the NFL tab, but I'm going to prioritize this section right here. So if you've got your questions, just jump into the Fantasy Alarm Discord in the live stream Q&A section, and I am taking them from there. I'm going to start off with Stefan Diggs Your Kitty user. Drop D. Parker or grab Guyton, given the COVID issues with Williams and Keenan Allen.
I mean, if you're in the playoffs, I wouldn't do that. I would hold on to Parker. He looked good coming back last week, made a key reception for them on the sideline. I think he was 5 for 62. So, but then again, I know some people it's you got to win this week. So I wouldn't want to drop Parker, especially if you're in the playoffs. If you have to win this week, I probably still would look for a potential better option again because, Guyton is boom or bust, especially if Mike Williams plays.
For sure. And then we've got need 3 out of this group from Ocon21. Options are Foreman, Claypool, Sutton, and Osborne.
Claypool, Osborne, and who was the first player?
Foreman.
Yeah, I think so. It's so difficult to trust at this point. I mean, we've seen his target should just be absolutely abysmal with Jerry Jeudy active. Foreman is probably going to get a lot of the early down work. They should be ahead against Tennessee. Jeremy McNichols looks like he will be back. You have Hilliard there. But it's just, I can't rely on Cortland Sutton right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the matchup for Tennessee, when you look at those running backs, we've got McNichols coming back into the picture, but it's a good matchup for them on the ground, and they do have to rely on the ground. Even with Julio Jones coming back, we don't know exactly how much he will be involved. And I think Foreman of that grouping is definitely the most stable one, in my opinion, just because of his work on the ground. I completely agree with you on those 3. All right, and then Hans03, what's up? All right, we've got with Dalvin Cook playing, do I keep him on IR? Because he would have to take a player out and drop them. And the options for who he would have to drop. Okay, it's a big list. I'll read it off. He's got Mixon and Pirine. He's got Javonte and Melvin Gordon. Josh Jacobs, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Sony Michel, Madison, Khalil Herbert.
Damn, that is what is this, a 30 roster spot league? I would drop Pirine. I mean, why do you need the handcuff for when you got all these starting running backs, Jacobs and you know what I mean? So I would drop Pirine. You can't have handcuffs for every player when you got 75 running backs on your team.
Correct. I would agree with that one. Then let's see. We've got a defense question. Should I stick with Dallas rest of season, with the schedule being Washington, Giants, and Washington, or use Denver this week and then the Miami versus the Jets next week?
Yeah, this is always tough. I mean, Denver I have rated higher this week, obviously. They're a solid defense. They're at home against Detroit. I guess if you need a win and you're in, you go Denver. If you don't, you're in a good spot, you can hold Dallas. Now, the only thing with Dallas is when they play the Giants next week, and I'll be at that game, it's their 3rd straight road game. So that's never good. We saw that with Cincinnati earlier this year, and they lost to the Jets. So, and it's a division game, and the Giants will be fired up for it, looking to ruin Dallas's hope. So just keep that in mind. But, they could have Mike Glennon at quarterback. So
exactly. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm okay with sticking with Dallas rest of season. Again, when I look at that, I still expect, I like the direction that Gibson's been heading. I think he'll still get solid work on the ground, but when you calculate up all those turnovers, it's just a win from a fantasy perspective. So I'm good with sticking with them. All right. And then next question. Thinking of dumping Fant for Ricky Seals-Jones. Would you do that?
I'm okay with that. I mean, really, I think people might be shocked, but Washington has a good schedule the rest of the way for tight ends. Getting Philly twice, Dallas twice, and the Giants. They all division games to finish. A very weird schedule. So, yeah, I mean, it sounds like he's going to play this week. He's been limited in practice. Sounds like he's good to go. But, again, Denver, they can't account for Fant, Sutton, Jeudy, Patrick. They just don't. They don't. So, Yeah, I'm okay with that. I don't have as much faith in Fan as everyone else. And that was my concern about him before the year. I was like, well, this offense is not going to be good enough to support all these guys. And it's been worse. I mean, they're not even supporting one wide receiver right now.
Yeah.
Like, as much as I love Jerry Jeudy, you can't even count on him.
Very true. He is sitting on my bench. He might move up this week, but given the matchup, maybe. But he's been sitting on the bench, unfortunately, because again, you just can't rely on him unless you're unless you're in a deep league. But yeah, I think sometimes we get caught up in wanting to go with the talent, and I get the talent with Fant, but we've got the guaranteed targets with Ricky Seals-Jones. So I definitely am with you in that I don't think it's crazy to go ahead and just go with Ricky Seals-Jones rest of season. All right, and then need a flex for Sunday. Guyton, Michelle, Hasty, or Marquez Valdez-Scantling?
Yeah, it's tough to answer this right now because we got to wait and see what happens with San Francisco, what happens with the Rams, and Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. So you're going to have to wait it out, unfortunately. If you want an answer now, I mean, honestly, I don't know because if Henderson's out, Michelle's automatic. That's the guy.
Yeah.
So I really don't know right now. So come back to the live stream on Sunday.
Yes, I agree with you. For right now, just plug in MVS because that's the only guarantee that you have. Although the weird thing about Sony Michel is that one I feel like is going to have to be like a leap of faith because, again, I see no reason that they wouldn't have Henderson active on Monday. Given the fact that they just need an active body along with Michelle. So that's kind of an interesting situation of what we'll actually know by Sunday. All right, next question. PPR, who sits? KJ Osborne, Mark Andrews, or Michael Gallup? Guy that he is playing or has Kirk Cousins, if that matters.
It doesn't. Damn, it's obviously between Osborne and Gallup. I think I would probably sit Gallup there because Cooper's probably going to come back to a full workload. You got to remember that Cooper was limited last week, didn't play a full complement of snaps, but it's close. But I'll go Osborne.
I agree.
Sit Gallup.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fantastic matchup for the Cowboys pass offense. But again, you've got CD, you've got Amari, you've got Schultz. It's way too much there. Although it's interesting maybe that since we don't have potentially don't have Pollard, but I do think you got to sit Gallup with that group. All right, and then we've got PPR. Need one wide receiver and one flex option with Osborne, Reynolds, Foreman, and Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Yeah, I think it's Osborne and Foreman.
Yeah, I think those are the most stable options. I mean, Josh Reynolds is interesting, and I like adding him in deep leagues, but I don't feel confident enough putting him into a starting lineup.
Yeah, no, I agree. In a deeper format, sure, but we got to be careful to go all in on the Lions after last week.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we didn't even talk about that victory. How'd I leave that off of the news? Man, I kind of blinked out on that one. That was a very nice moment there with Jared Goff and his big hug to his coach and that game-winning touchdown by Amon-Ra St. Brown, his best game of. Yeah, I'm a little disappointed in myself not touching on that for Amon-Ra St. Brown, his career day as a rookie with that win for the Lions.
Yeah, typical Vikings loss, right? Really needed that game, and they get the lead and fourth down play, and they make it. But good for Detroit. They fought all year. They're actually 8-4 against the spread, so they're at least helping people win money if you're taking Detroit against the spread. Yes.
Which reminds me as well, another one that I didn't even touch. So, these game recaps that maybe we should hit on these a little bit more. Philadelphia, I guess we've had so much going on that I completely pivoted away and forgot about that moment there with, because they're on a bye week this week. So it's not actually a controversy yet. And I don't think it's a controversy at all, but a lot of people are kind of saying hey, Gardner Minshew, what's going on here with him? That fantastic game, fantastic moment there with him getting the win. But probably the most interesting part of that is what we're doing with those running backs. When we come off of the bye week, we're going to potentially have healthy Miles Sanders, Jordan Howard, Boston Scott, Kenneth Gainwell finally got back into the action. Moving forward, is this, are you touching on any portion of this? Are you feeling confident in Miles Sanders, since it does seem like they are, at least when he's healthy and on the field, willing to give him that opportunity now?
Yeah, he did hurt his ankle late in that game, so we're going to have to wait and see when they return to see what the practice reports are. But yeah, it's definitely a backfield that's really difficult to deal with. And then when Jalen Hurts comes back, he steals touchdowns as well. So it's not a great backfield, especially when you're talking by the time they play again, it's going to be the playoffs, and you can't take those risks. So it's going to be tough to play anyone in that backfield.
Yeah. And then jumping back to the questions, we got half-point PPR, need one running back between Hasty and Foreman.
I mean, right now.
So let's say if Hasty was the guy.
There again, the reports, I think it was a beat reporter, so be careful with that. So we're going to have to wait and see. They're saying Jeff Wilson would be the main back. If that's the case, then I'm playing Foreman.
Yeah, I agree on that one. Full point PPR. Let's see. I think I know what direction we're heading on this one, but do you start Madison despite Cook coming back, or do you take a chance that Elijah Mitchell plays on Sunday afternoon?
You can't. Hopefully that's not the two options, because I don't think you could play Madison tonight. I really don't. And we could look foolish because Cook could go out there on the first play, get hit, and the shoulder hurt, and here comes Madison. But I don't see how you play Madison tonight. Yeah. We've seen it time and time again. When Dalvin Cook is healthy, they give him the full workload. They don't split. They feel he's good enough to play. So it's dicey. We saw this when Cook missed the game earlier this year, right? Madison had that big game against Detroit. Cook came back the next week, got the full workload. And we've seen it with David Montgomery. Remember how good Khalil Herbert was? He's good. No, it was all Montgomery when he came back. Same thing with Henderson and Michelle. Henderson missed the game, I think, earlier this year. Michelle had a big. Henderson came back full workload. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We did see a little Williams, but CEH went right back into the role. So this is what these teams do, and we've seen it time and time again with Dalvin Cook. And understand, there is risk with Dalvin Cook, no question about it. Again, he could get hurt in the first play of the game, second quarter, and then people are, oh, you were foolish. We don't know. We can't predict these things. But Minnesota is putting him on the football field. They feel confident enough. They have money invested in him. So I'm playing Dalvin Cook. I'm not playing Alexander Madison, because it could be 4 touches for him tonight. Maybe he finds the end zone, but if he has 4 touches, are you going to ever bank on that and put that guy in your lineup? If I tell you, hey, Madison's getting 4 to 6 touches tonight, you're not. So hopefully it's not Madison or Mitchell, because that's a problem, because we don't know if Mitchell's going to play, dealing with a concussion and a knee issue. I have Madison in one league. I'm not playing him tonight. Same. And look, if he has the big game, oh, well, I feel I made the right decision, and I'll live with it.
Yeah, we are completely of the same mind on this one. I just don't see a reality in which there's a split. So where you would be 100% dependent on hoping for a re-aggravation of an injury that gives Madison some time. So I agree. If you've got Elijah Mitchell, unfortunately, I don't think you can take a chance on it. You need to go ahead and prepare yourself for him not being able to play. So go ahead and, maybe you're looking at Jeff Wilson if he's available. There's some other options out there as well. Ty Johnson. Maybe we touch on that for a second. Some of our streaming options. I've got that question a lot this week in terms of who we're looking at. I think it's a little more clear because we've got situations where you mentioned Ty Johnson. We've got Tevin Coleman that could be out. You have if Elijah Mitchell doesn't play, you've got multiple pivot options there. Someone else that I was looking at as well that you could take a chance on, we've got down there in Carolina. I do think that Chuba is going to get the majority of the work on the ground, but if you want to take a chance from a PPR perspective that Abdullah is going to get pass catching work out of the backfield, I think that's a pretty solid play as well. So any additional streaming options?
Yeah, no, Abdullah's a good one. He actually might be out there because they were coming off a bye. I guess Dontrell Hilliard if you're desperate. Coleman, Ty Johnson we mentioned. But we're going to just have to kind of monitor the news and see. Rashad Penny, if you're desperate. They've been wanting to give him the football. I understand it's a crowded backfield. Alex Collins could be back. I see Peterson hasn't practiced. So I don't know what that's about. But they are playing the Texans, could play from ahead. So Rashad Penny would be one. Because they've been wanting to give him the football. It's just he can't stay healthy.
And I don't know if I'm crazy, but I could have sworn that I saw a report of Pete Carroll saying that Penny would be seeing more work. And I think that I saw that.
Yeah, they've always wanted to give him more work. It's just he has not been able to stay healthy. So he would be the one guy, I guess, out of Seattle.
Yeah. Yes. So, but that's where we would pivot, because I think you need to not start Madison and prepare for Mitchell not being there and going out with another option.
And Mitchell did not practice today. Just saw that. He did not practice.
Yeah. I hate that. Oh, I've got Mitchell in a few places, but yeah, unfortunately, you're going to need to prepare for a pivot there. Next question, any concerns with both Mixon and Elijah Moore? We touched on it a little bit in terms of Elijah Moore. Mixon, we didn't really touch on too much.
I mean, nothing yet. They just said he's dealing with an illness that's non-COVID. So, hopefully he's back there tomorrow, but not really concerned just yet.
Yep. And then 16 team PPR. Well, I think it's half PPR. Oh, no. 16 team PPR. And then some extra points for first downs and whatnot. Need 1 wide receiver, 1 running back, 2 flex out of this grouping. So 1 wide receiver, 1 running back, 2 flex. Claypool, Osborne, Guyton, Khalil Herbert, Hilliard, Dylan Hubbard.
You said Osborne, right?
Yep, Osborne. So Claypool, Osborne, Guyton, Herbert, Hilliard, Dylan Hubbard.
I mean, right now, here, Herbert's out of the equation. Montgomery returned a pack. Obviously, Montgomery's out Herbert. But right now, I go Claypool, Osborne, Dylan, and Hubbard. So I would play the 2 guys at tonight's game. And, there are a couple other ones in there that maybe their role changes on Sunday. But right now, Claypool, Osborne, Dylan, and Hubbard.
I think that makes sense. On the Dylan note, we mentioned all those backfields where it's clear, where the guy goes down, he comes back, he goes back to his normal workload. But we've seen, even before the injury, the insertion of AJ Dillon and this kind of split work with Aaron Jones. So, I've seen this, which one am I starting? Am I starting both? Which one of these guys are you leaning towards? Do you favor and think is going to get the majority of the workload?
I have Jones ranked higher. But yeah, I mean, I think you can play Dylan. I mean, he's kind of like a low end RB2 at this point because they are using him. The surprising part about that game against the Rams was Dylan was more involved in the passing game, and Aaron Jones didn't even have 1 reception. He only had 1 target. So, but I would think, he came back. They had the bye week. I would expect Aaron Jones to be good to go. But yeah, you're frustrated if you have Aaron Jones because he's not delivering for what you paid for. I mean, he's got 7 total touchdowns this year. He's got 1 100-yard game on the ground, and his touches have been going down. So they've been using Dylan a lot more. So it's been frustrating if you have Aaron Jones. This is not what you paid for.
For sure. First round talent, and we're not getting that production that we expected. This one is an easy one. Well, I don't even know that we have to discuss what's this one. Half PPR, use Madison or Melvin Gordon. We are not using Madison. So I'm feeling confident that Melvin Gordon is going to be playing. Everything's coming out is in a positive direction. So wait for Melvin Gordon. Next question. The follow-up question with how can I drop P. Ryan with Mixon being questionable this week?
Yeah, he had like 75 running backs that start, right?
Yes,
it was like Jacobs, and so why are you worried about that?
I think Mixon's is just an illness right now, and I know there was reports of maybe like a neck injury as well, but that's not really popping up as the main issue with him. So I think, if you have to drop somebody, I think that's the one that you have to go with.
Again, he had a lot of running backs, and you cannot handcuff every single running back. You just can't. I mean, are you going to play P. Ryan over Josh Jacobs? Jacobs had 9 targets last week. Kenyon Drake's out for the season, and Jalen Richard's still on COVID. Jacobs, I didn't love Josh Jacobs coming into the year. I don't have him on any teams, but his role has changed.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then, regarding Dalvin Cook as well, does he get a full workload? It's sounding like he's going to have his full workload. I think I saw an update as well where he'll be playing with a harness, and we have an actual example of him playing with a harness in a previous game where he had 100+ yards and multiple touchdowns. So it's not, I don't think it's the concern that we think it is. If it's, he's going, we want to start him. So don't be super concerned about it. You know, if an injury happens, it's something that can happen to any running back. So we are all in on Cook right now. And then last question before we sign off here. Any point, I like this one because we as a fantasy community do love Javonte Williams, but Melvin Gordon is there, and I don't think that he will be disappearing. So question is, any point to Melvin Gordon, keeping Melvin Gordon, since I have Javonte Williams, who is clearly better?
Yeah, I mean, you keep him for sure, because what happens if Javonte goes down, right? So, yeah, I mean, Melvin Gordon is still an RB2. Good matchup this week, too. I mean, they both could go off this week, right?
Yeah.
Against Detroit at home. So, yeah, I mean, we just talked about the running back landscape and how brutal it is. You don't drop Melvin Gordon, man, because someone else is going to pick him up real quick that's dealing with all these issues.
For sure. All right, guys. Thank you for submitting your questions. Really appreciate it. Great show. Enjoyed talking with you all. We're going to go ahead and close this thing out because it is close to game time. So we need to wrap things up and go enjoy the Steelers and the Vikings. We thank you all for tuning in for our Thursday night pregame show, and come back and join us next week. We are pretty pumped up for this one. We will be seeing the Chiefs and the Chargers. So that'll be a very exciting game. But from Tara and Adam Ronis, thank you for watching and good luck with your lineups. We will see you next week.